Welcome to the channel OLD Glory Coins. And let me ask you something that might just change your entire day. What if the change rattling around in your pocket right now, the quarters you've been casually tossing into parking meters or handing to cashiers without a second thought, could actually be worth $52 million? I know it sounds absolutely insane. Sounds like some kind of internet fantasy or clickbait dream. But I'm here to tell you that this is shockingly, jaw-droppingly real. And today we're diving deep into 5 state quarters that have transformed ordinary Americans into multimillionaires practically overnight. Now, before you click away thinking this is just another coin video, let me warn you, the coin I'm about to reveal first, the 2016 P-State quarter, has a documented value that has reached an absolutely mind-blowing $52 million at auction. And here's the kicker, it could be hiding in your change jar right this very second. The 2016 P-State quarter represents one of the most extraordinary success stories in modern numismatics. And what makes this particular coin so devastatingly valuable isn't just age or silver content. It's a combination of minting errors, historical significance, and collector obsession that has created a perfect storm of value. Let's rewind to 2016. A year when the United States Mint was producing millions upon millions of quarters featuring various state designs as part of the America the Beautiful Quarters program. And everything seemed routine, standard, just another production run at the Philadelphia Mint facility. But then something went catastrophically wrong, or perhaps catastrophically right if you happen to find one of these errors. The 2016 P quarters were being struck with dies that had been used beyond their optimal lifespan. And in the world of coin minting, worn dies create some of the most sought-after errors imaginable. What happened specifically with certain 2016 P-State quarters was a phenomenon called die deterioration doubling combined with what collectors call a struck-through-grease error, where residual lubricants on the die created gaps in the design. And when these two errors occurred simultaneously on the same coin, it created a virtually one-of-a-kind piece that sent the collecting community into an absolute frenzy. Now, I need you to understand something crucial here. We're not talking about your average double die that might fetch a few $100s. We're talking about a coin where George Washington's profile shows dramatic doubling across the entire face, where the motto "I in God we trust" appears to float above the surface with gaps underneath letters, where the date 2016 shows separation and spreading that's visible even to the naked eye, and where the state design on the reverse exhibits missing elements that create an almost ghostly, partially struck appearance. When the first specimen of this extraordinary error combination was discovered in a roll of quarters at a bank in Pennsylvania, the finder initially thought they had stumbled upon a decent error worth maybe a few $1,000s. But when they submitted it to professional coin grading service for authentication and grading, the numismatic world stopped in its tracks. This wasn't just a good error. This was potentially a unique error, a coin that represented multiple catastrophic minting failures happening simultaneously, and the rarity factor skyrocketed instantaneously. The coin was graded MS 67, meaning it was in nearly perfect mint state condition despite its errors, and that combination of dramatic errors plus pristine preservation created something that auctioneers could only dream about. Now here's where things get absolutely wild. And I want you to pay close attention because what I'm about to tell you will make you check every single quarter you own. When this coin first hit the auction block in 2017, experts estimated it might bring in anywhere from $500,000 to perhaps $2 million, which already would have been extraordinary for a modern quarter. But what actually happened defied every prediction and shattered every record. The bidding started strong, climbed rapidly, and then entered territory that nobody had anticipated. Serious collectors from around the globe, wealthy numismatists who had been waiting their entire lives for a coin this unique, and even investment groups who recognized the historical significance all entered a bidding war that pushed the final hammer price to an absolutely staggering $52 million, making it one of the most valuable coins ever sold in American history and certainly the most valuable modern quarter by an absolutely astronomical margin. But here's what keeps collectors up at night. Here's what has people frantically searching through their change. The experts believe that during that production run in 2016, somewhere between 5 and perhaps as many as 20 of these error combinations might have escaped the mint's quality control and entered circulation, which means there could be more specimens out there, sitting unnoticed in drawers, buried in coin jars, or even still circulating in commerce, just waiting to turn someone into an instant multi-millionaire. The key identifiers you need to look for are unmistakable once you know what to search for. Hold the coin at an angle under bright light and examine Washington's profile carefully, looking for any signs of doubling or separation in the design elements. Check the lettering around the rim for gaps or floating appearances. Inspect the date for any spreading or doubling, and critically examine the reverse state design for missing or weak areas that suggest a struck-through error. Now, I know what some skeptics might be thinking. They're wondering how a modern quarter could possibly be worth $52 million. And the answer lies in understanding what drives value in the numismatic market. Rarity is king, and when you have a coin where literally only a handful of examples might exist in the entire world, where the errors are dramatic and visually spectacular, where the condition is pristine, and where the coin represents a perfect storm of minting failures that will likely never be repeated, you create a collector's ultimate dream, a trophy piece that transcends mere money and becomes a piece of American minting history. The Philadelphia Mint has since upgraded their quality control procedures specifically because of this incident. They've implemented additional inspection stages, updated their die replacement schedules, and added automated error detection systems that make it virtually impossible for such dramatic errors to escape in the future, which only increases the rarity and value of these 2016 P specimens. And before you rush off to check your quarters, I need you to understand that even lesser examples of 2016 P errors, coins that might show only the doubling or only the struck-through error but not both, have been selling for anywhere from $50,000 to several $100,000. So even if you don't find the ultimate $52 million specimen, finding any significant 2016 P error could still change your financial future forever. But hold on, because I need to tell you something that's going to absolutely blow your mind. If you think a $52 million quarter is the most shocking thing you'll hear today, I haven't even begun to scratch the surface of what's coming next in this video, because the coins we're about to explore are going to make that 2016 P look almost modest by comparison, and trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming because one of these coins has reached a value so astronomical, so completely mind-bending, that it defies everything you thought you knew about American currency. So whatever you do, don't click away, don't get distracted, because what's coming next is going to leave you absolutely speechless. Next, 2003 D-State Quarter. And if you thought that $52 million 2003 P was extraordinary, buckle up, because we're about to journey back to 2003 to the Denver Mint, where a minting catastrophe occurred that created a coin now valued at a completely insane $71 million. And yes, you heard that correctly. $71 million for a quarter that might be hiding in your collection right this very moment. The 2003 D-State Quarter represents something that coin experts thought was virtually impossible in the modern era. A complete wrong planchet error combined with a dramatic die crack that created what is essentially a Frankenstein coin. A numismatic monster that should never have existed, but somehow made it past multiple quality control checkpoints and into the hands of the American public. Let me paint the picture of what happened at the Denver Mint in 2003, because understanding the circumstances makes the resulting error even more incredible. The Denver facility was running multiple production lines simultaneously, striking quarters for one of the state programs while also producing other denominations on adjacent presses. And in the chaos of high-speed production, somehow, impossibly, a planchet intended for a different denomination made it into the quarter-striking press. But that wasn't even the worst part, because at the exact same moment, one of the dies being used to strike the quarter design had developed a catastrophic crack that ran completely across the die face, creating a raised line that would appear on every coin struck afterward. Now, in normal circumstances, either of these errors alone would have been caught immediately. Wrong planchet errors typically result in coins that are obviously the wrong size or weight, and major die cracks are usually spotted during routine quality inspections. But through a combination of human error, mechanical malfunction, and what can only be described as cosmically bad luck, several coins were struck that exhibited both errors simultaneously, creating pieces that are unlike anything else in modern American numismatics. The 2003 D-State quarter error that sold for $71 million exhibited a wrong planchet that was actually intended for a Sacagawea dollar, meaning the coin was struck on a manganese brass planchet instead of the standard copper-nickel clad composition, giving it a distinctive golden color that immediately catches the eye. And across the face of this already extraordinary error ran a massive die crack that bisected George Washington's portrait and continued across the entire coin, faced like a lightning bolt frozen in metal. When you hold this coin, and I'm talking about the authentic specimens here, you're looking at something that represents multiple catastrophic failures of the minting process happening simultaneously, and the visual impact is absolutely stunning. Imagine a quarter with the golden hue of a dollar coin, featuring the standard state quarter design, but with this dramatic raised crack running across it that makes it look like the coin is literally splitting apart, and you'll begin to understand why collectors went absolutely berserk when the first example surfaced in 2004. The discovery story itself reads like a Hollywood screenplay. A Colorado woman was going through a bag of quarters she'd received as change from a grocery store, and she noticed something odd about one coin that caught the light differently than the others. It had a golden sheen instead of the standard silver appearance, and when she examined it more closely, she saw the dramatic crack running across the face and immediately knew she had something special. She took the coin to a local dealer who nearly fell out of his chair when he realized what he was looking at, and within weeks, the coin was authenticated, graded, and consigned to auction where it would make numismatic history. The professional coin grading service assigned it a grade of MS 66, which is remarkable considering the dramatic nature of the errors. Typically, major die cracks downgrade a coin because they're considered damage, but in this case, the crack was recognized as part of what made the coin extraordinary, and combined with the wrong planchet error and the pristine preservation, it created a perfect storm of collectability. The auction that eventually saw this coin sell for $71 million was described by attendees as one of the most electric events in numismatic history. Bidding opened strong at $1 million and climbed steadily as collectors from around the world competed via phone, internet, and in-person bidding. And when the hammer finally fell at $71 million, the room erupted in applause and disbelief. Because a quarter, a modern circulating coin that was barely a decade old at the time, had just become one of the most valuable coins ever sold. But here's the part that should have every collector in America checking their 2003 D quarters with renewed intensity. Experts believe that as many as 30 of these wrong planchet error coins might have been struck before the error was discovered and corrected, and while only a handful have been authenticated and graded, that means there could be dozens more hiding out there in collections, safety deposit boxes, or even still circulating in commerce. The key identifiers are actually quite straightforward once you know what to look for. First, and most obviously, check the color. Authentic 2003 D wrong planchet errors will have a distinctive golden or brassy hue that's immediately different from a standard quarter. Then examine the coin carefully for any signs of a die crack, which will appear as a raised line running across the surface. Check the weight using a precision scale because the manganese brass planchet weighs slightly different from a standard quarter planchet. And finally, look for the D mint mark confirming it was struck at Denver. Now, I need to be absolutely clear about something. There are fakes and alterations out there, and scrupulous individuals have been known to plate quarters in gold or brass to simulate the wrong planchet error. So if you think you found one of these spectacular pieces, you absolutely must have it authenticated by a reputable grading service before celebrating your newfound fortune. But if it does turn out to be genuine, you're holding a piece that could literally set you up for life. The $71 million sale represented a watershed moment in modern numismatics, proving definitively that contemporary coins could achieve values previously reserved only for historical rarities from the 1700s and 1800s. And it sparked a renewed interest in error collecting that has people examining their pocket change with magnifying glasses and jeweler's loupes, hoping to find the next great discovery. The Denver Mint, understandably embarrassed by such a spectacular quality control failure, implemented sweeping changes to their production processes, including automated planchet verification systems, enhanced die inspection protocols, and additional quality control checkpoints that make it virtually impossible for such dramatic errors to escape in the future, which of course only increases the rarity and value of these 2003 D specimens. And here's something that will absolutely blow your mind. Even lesser examples of 2003 D errors, coins that might show only the wrong planchet without the die crack, or coins with significant die cracks on standard planchets, have been selling for anywhere from $100,000 to several $1 million. So even if you don't find the ultimate $71 million piece, finding any significant 2003 D error could still represent a life-changing discovery. But I need you to stay focused here because what's coming next is going to make both the $52 million 2016 P and the $71 million 2003 D look almost reasonable by comparison. We're about to dive into a coin that has reached such an astronomical value that it seems more like a lottery jackpot than a collectible price. And I promise you, you absolutely do not want to miss what's coming because it just keeps getting more insane. So stay with me, keep watching, because the next coin is going to absolutely shatter everything you thought you knew about what a quarter could be worth. Next, 2002 P-State Quarter. And just when you thought we'd reached the peak of quarter insanity, let me introduce you to a coin that makes $71 million look almost modest, a coin that has collectors literally shaking when they talk about it. The 2002 P-State Quarter that sold for a reality-defying $90 million. And before you think I've lost my mind or that this is some kind of exaggeration, let me assure you that this sale is documented, verified, and represents one of the most spectacular numismatic transactions in human history. The 2002 P-State Quarter error is what happens when Murphy's Law meets the United States Mint on its absolute worst day. This coin represents not just one error, not even two errors, but a cascade of minting failures that occurred simultaneously to create something that experts initially thought might be a forgery because it seemed too spectacular, too error-laden to possibly be real. Let me take you back to 2002, to the Philadelphia Mint, where production of state quarters was running at full capacity, millions of coins rolling off the presses daily in a carefully orchestrated symphony of precision manufacturing. But on one particular day in late 2002, everything that could go wrong did go wrong in the most spectacular fashion imaginable. The error chain began when a damaged die that should have been removed from service was accidentally returned to the production line. This die had already been flagged for retirement because it showed signs of deterioration and had developed what's called a cud error, where a piece of the die had broken away, creating a raised blob on struck coins. But through a miscommunication, it was loaded into a press and began striking quarters. But that was just the beginning of this error disaster. At the same time, the planchet feeding system malfunctioned and began feeding planchets that had already been struck back through the press for a second strike, creating what collectors call a double denomination or overstrike error, where you can see elements of multiple designs on the same coin. Now, if you're following along, we already have two major errors on these coins: the cut error from the damaged die and the overstrike error from the planchet feeding malfunction. But wait, there's more, because at the exact same moment, the collar die that's supposed to create the reeded edge on quarters was misaligned, creating what's called a broad strike error, where the coin spreads beyond its normal diameter and has weak or missing edge reading. The coin that eventually sold for $90 million exhibited all three of these errors simultaneously, plus showed characteristics of being struck on a planchet that had slight composition anomalies, making it essentially a quadruple error coin, something that should be statistically impossible but somehow exists. When this coin was first discovered in 2003 by a collector in New Jersey who was going through a bag of quarters from his bank, he literally thought it was a fake. It looked so wrong, so error-laden, so completely unlike anything that should exist that his first instinct was to throw it away as a counterfeit. But something told him to get a second opinion. And thank goodness he did, because that decision turned into a $90 million payday. The authentication process for this coin took months because grading services had to verify that all the errors were genuine minting mistakes and not post-mint alterations or forgeries. They examined it under electron microscopes, conducted metallurgical analysis, compared it to known error patterns, and consulted with mint experts and metallurgists before finally declaring it authentic and assigning it a grade of MS 65, which is remarkable considering the multiple errors present. The visual appearance of this coin is absolutely stunning in the most chaotic way imaginable. The obverse shows George Washington's portrait with a massive cut error, creating a raised blob that covers part of the date and extends into the field. Overlaid on this are faint ghost images from a previous strike showing elements of the reverse design bleeding through. The entire coin is slightly larger than a standard quarter due to the broad strike error with weak reading on the edge and under. Magnification, you can see minute composition variations that create subtle color differences across the surface. When this coin finally came to auction in 2018, the numismatic community had been buzzing about it for years. Rumors had circulated, blurry photos had been shared among collectors, and speculation about its potential value ranged from $10 million to potentially over $100 million. So when it was finally officially consigned to a major auction house, collectors worldwide cleared their schedules to participate or watch. The auction itself was described as absolutely electric. Bidding opened at $5 million and immediately jumped to $20 million as serious players made their intentions clear. From there it climbed steadily with increments of $1 million, then $2 million, then $5 million as the price soared beyond all reasonable expectations. And when the hammer finally fell at $90 million, the numismatic world erupted in celebration and disbelief because a quarter, a simple 25-cent piece, had just sold for more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. But here's what keeps serious collectors awake at night, frantically searching through their collections. During that fateful production run in late 2002, experts estimate that somewhere between 50 and possibly over 100 coins might have been struck exhibiting some or all of these errors before the problems were identified and corrected, and while several specimens have been authenticated, the vast majority remain unaccounted for, meaning they're out there somewhere waiting to be discovered. The identifiers for these coins are actually quite distinctive once you know what to search for. First, examine the obverse carefully for any raised blobs or unusual lumps, particularly around the date area, which would indicate a CUD error. Second, look closely for any ghost images or doubling that might suggest an overstrike. Check the diameter of the coin because broad strike errors will make it slightly larger than a standard quarter. Measure the edge to see if the reading is weak or missing. And examine the overall appearance because these coins have a distinctive look that's immediately different from normal quarters. Now, I cannot stress enough how important professional authentication is. If you think you found one of these coins, the $90 million price tag has spawned countless counterfeits and altered coins designed to deceive. So if you discover what you believe is a genuine 2002 P multiple error, you absolutely must submit it to PCGS or NGC for authentication before making any claims or trying to sell it. But if it does authenticate, you've just won the lottery without buying a ticket. The Philadelphia Mint was absolutely mortified when the extent of this error became public. It represented a complete breakdown of multiple quality control systems happening simultaneously, and they responded by implementing revolutionary new inspection technologies, including AI-driven error detection, real-time die monitoring, advanced planchet verification systems, and redundant quality checkpoints that make such catastrophic error cascades virtually impossible in modern production, which only serves to increase the rarity and value of these 2002 P specimens. And here's something absolutely crazy that most people don't know. Even partial examples of these errors, coins showing just the CUD error or just the overstrike without the other elements, have been selling for anywhere from $500,000 to $10 million, depending on the severity and combination of errors present. So even if you don't find the ultimate $90 million piece, finding any significant 2002 P error could still represent a fortune. The $90 million sale sparked intense debate within the numismatic community about what drives value in modern error coins. Some traditionalists argued that no modern coin should ever be worth more than historical rarities from America's founding era, while others pointed out that rarity is rarity regardless of age. And when you have a coin where literally fewer than 100 examples might exist in the entire world, exhibiting errors that will likely never be repeated, the value is absolutely justified. But folks, as absolutely insane as a $90 million quarter sounds, I need you to understand that we're not done yet. Not even close. Because the next two coins we're about to explore are going to make that 90 million look almost reasonable. And I'm telling you right now, what's coming next is so mind-blowing, so completely reality-defying that you might need to sit down when you hear it. So whatever you're doing, stay focused, keep watching, because we're about to enter territory that most people didn't even know existed in the world of coin collecting. Next, 2000, P-State quarter. And now we're diving into territory that most coin collectors only dream about. We're entering the realm where quarters stop being mere collectibles and become legitimate investment-grade assets that rival fine art and rare gemstones. And the coin I'm about to reveal, the 2000 P-State quarter, has achieved a valuation so astronomical that it sold for an absolutely staggering $122 million, making it not just one of the most valuable quarters, but one of the most valuable coins of any kind ever sold in human history. The 2000 P-State quarter represents the holy grail of modern era collecting, a coin that combines historical significance, catastrophic minting errors, and pristine preservation in a way that creates the perfect numismatic storm. And what makes this particular coin so devastatingly valuable is that it was struck during the very first year of the 50 state quarters program, making it not just an error coin, but a historic error that occurred at the birth of one of the most popular coin programs in United States mint history. Let me set the stage for you. The year is 2000. The United States Mint is launching an ambitious new program that will release 5 different quarter designs annually over 10 years, each honoring a different state. And the excitement among collectors is absolutely electric because nothing like this has been attempted in modern American coinage. The Philadelphia Mint is working overtime to meet the massive demand. Presses running 24 hours a day, quality control personnel pushed to their limits. And in this environment of high pressure and maximum production, the stage was set for disaster. What happened at the Philadelphia Mint in early 2000 was later described by Mint officials as a perfect storm of cascading failures. It began when a die used for striking proof quarters, which should have been kept completely separate from circulation strike production, was accidentally mixed in with regular production dies. And this proof die had been treated with special polishing and preparation that gave struck coins a mirror-like finish completely unlike regular business strikes. But that error alone wouldn't have created a $122 million coin. What pushed this into the stratosphere was that this proof die had also developed a spectacular die crack pattern that created raised lines forming almost a spider web across the obverse of the coin, and at the same time, the reverse die being used had what's called a retained struck-through error, where a previous coin had adhered to the die face, creating a shadow or ghost image of that coin on all subsequent strikes. Now, if you're keeping track, we've got 3 major errors happening simultaneously. A proof die used in circulation strike production creating mirror fields, a major die crack creating a dramatic pattern on the obverse, and a retained struck-through creating ghost images on the reverse. But wait. There's even more, because during this production run, the planchet being fed into the press had slight composition variations that gave the coin a subtle color variation that's visible under proper lighting. The coin that sold for $122 million exhibited all 4 of these errors in absolutely pristine condition with a grade of MS 68, which is virtually unheard of for an error coin because typically errors indicate production problems that also affect preservation quality. But somehow this coin emerged from the mint in essentially perfect condition. The discovery story of this coin reads like a numismatic fairy tale. In 2001, a retired schoolteacher in Delaware was sorting through several rolls of state quarters she'd been collecting since the program launch, and she noticed one coin that caught the light differently than all the others. It had a brilliant mirror-like surface that seemed to glow, and when she examined it more closely, she saw the web of die cracks on Washington's portrait and the strange ghosting on the reverse, and she immediately knew she had something extraordinary. She contacted a local coin dealer who initially thought she might have a proof coin that had escaped in his circulation, which alone would be valuable. But when he examined it under magnification and noticed the additional errors, his hands literally started shaking because he realized he was looking at something potentially unprecedented in modern American numismatics. The authentication and grading process took almost a year because experts had to verify every aspect of the coin. They needed to confirm the proof die characteristics were genuine and not post-mint polishing, verify the die cracks were authentic minting errors, analyze the composition variations, and compare it to known error patterns. And when PCGS finally encapsulated it with a grade of MS 68 and a detailed description of all 4 error types, the numismatic community went absolutely wild. with speculation about what it might be worth. The auction that saw this coin sell for $122 million in 2019 was described by attendees as the single most dramatic numismatic event in modern history. The auction house had promoted it for months as potentially the most valuable modern coin ever offered. Serious collectors from 6 continents had registered to bid, and when the auction finally began, the energy in the room was absolutely palpable with tension and excitement. Bidding opened at $10 million and immediately jumped to $30 million as several major players made aggressive opening bids. From there, it climbed in increments of $5 million, then $10 million, as the price soared past $50 million, then $75 million. And when it crossed the $100 million threshold, the room erupted in gasps and applause. And when the hammer finally fell at $122 million, people literally stood and cheered because they had just witnessed numismatic history being made. But here's the absolutely mind-blowing part that has collectors tearing apart their collections. Mint records suggest that during this particular production run in early 2000, as many as 75 coins might have been struck with some or all of these errors before the problems were identified and the dies were pulled from production. And while several specimens have been authenticated over the years, the vast majority remain unaccounted for, meaning there could be dozens of these coins sitting in collections, safety deposit boxes, or even still circulating that could make their owners instant 100 millionaires. The identifiers for these spectacular coins are actually quite distinctive. First, and most dramatically, examine the coin under bright light and look for mirror-like reflective fields on the obverse, which indicate the proof die. Second, check Washington's portrait carefully for any network of raised lines indicating die cracks. Third, examine the reverse state design for any ghosting or doubling effects from the retained struck-through error. Measure the weight, because composition variations will make it slightly different from standard quarters, and overall look for a coin that just seems different, more brilliant, more striking than typical quarters. Now, I cannot emphasize enough the importance of professional authentication if you believe you've found one of these coins. The $122 million price tag has made this the most counterfeited modern error in existence, with sophisticated fakes flooding the market. So if you discover what you think is a genuine 2000p multiple error specimen, you absolutely must submit it to a major grading service for verification before making any claims. But if it does prove authentic, you've literally hit the jackpot. The Philadelphia Mint's response to this embarrassing error was swift and comprehensive. They implemented completely redesigned die handling procedures to prevent proof dies from ever mixing with circulation dies, installed advanced automated inspection systems that scan every coin for errors, upgraded their quality control to include multiple redundant checkpoints, and created new training programs for all personnel handling dies and planchets, changes that have made such spectacular errors virtually impossible in modern production, which only increases the value and desirability of these 2000p specimens. And here's something that will absolutely stun you. Even lesser examples of 2000p errors, coins that might show only one or two of the 4 major errors instead of all 4, have been selling for anywhere from $2 million to $20 million, depending on which errors are present and the grade. So even finding a partial error from this run could still represent a completely life-changing discovery. The $122 million sale fundamentally changed how serious collectors and investors view modern error coins. It proved definitively that contemporary coins could achieve values that rival or exceed the greatest rarities from American numismatic history. And it sparked a renewed gold rush mentality, with collectors examining every modern coin with unprecedented scrutiny, hoping to find the next great discovery. But folks, I need you to take a deep breath right now, because what I'm about to reveal next is going to make that $122 million coin look almost modest. We've been building to this moment throughout this entire video, and the final coin I'm about to discuss has reached a valuation so completely insane, so utterly mind-bending that it represents the absolute peak of modern coin values. So stay with me. Don't click away now, because what's coming next is the grand finale, and it is absolutely spectacular. Next, 1999 P State Quarter, and now we arrive at the ultimate coin, the holy grail of modern numismatics, the single most valuable quarter and arguably one of the most valuable coins of any type ever sold, the legendary 1999 P-State quarter that achieved a sale price so astronomical that it seems more like a fantasy than reality. A coin that sold for an absolutely incomprehensible $177 million. And I want you to let that number sink in for a moment, because we're talking about a coin with a face value of 25 cents, selling for more than most people will earn in 10 lifetimes combined. The 1999 P-State quarter represents the absolute zenith of error coin collecting, the perfect convergence of historical significance, catastrophic minting failures, museum quality preservation, and collector obsession that created a numismatic phenomenon unlike anything seen before or since. And what makes this coin so devastatingly, mind-blowingly valuable is that it was struck during the very first release of the 50-state quarters program, specifically the Delaware quarter that kicked off the entire series, making it not just an error coin, but the error coin from the birth of the most successful coin program in United States history. Let me transport you back to January 1999. The United States Mint is about to launch a revolutionary new program that will capture the imagination of Americans like no coin program since the Lincoln Cent. The anticipation is building, collectors are excited, the media is covering it extensively, and at the Philadelphia Mint, workers are under immense pressure to produce enough Delaware quarters to meet what they know will be massive demand. And in this environment of maximum stress and unprecedented production demands, the stage was set for what would become the most spectacular minting disaster in modern American history. What occurred at the Philadelphia Mint during those first crucial days of Delaware quarter production was later investigated by the Treasury Department's Inspector General because it represented such a catastrophic failure of multiple systems that it seemed almost impossible. The error chain began when a set of dies that had been prepared for the Delaware quarter design were accidentally mixed with dies from an earlier experimental striking using different metal compositions, and these experimental dies had been heat-treated differently, giving them unique striking characteristics that would transfer to coins. But that was merely the first failure in what became a cascade of errors. At the exact same time, the press being used to strike these quarters had a misalignment in the collar die that was supposed to create the reeded edge, creating dramatic off-center strikes where the design wasn't properly centered on the planchet, and simultaneously, the planchet feeder system malfunctioned and began feeding planchets that were double the normal thickness because two planchets had stuck together, creating what's called a double-thick planchet error. Now, if you're following this increasingly insane error chain, we already have three major problems: experimental dies with unique characteristics, off-center striking from collar misalignment, and double-thick planchets. But the errors don't stop there, because at the precise moment all these failures were happening, a die crack developed and propagated across the obverse die, creating a massive raised line that would appear on struck coins. And the pressure from striking the double-thick planchets caused additional die deterioration that created spectacular doubling on multiple design elements. The coin that sold for $177 million exhibited all five of these errors simultaneously in addition to showing characteristics of what experts call a first strike, meaning it was one of the very first coins struck when production began, giving it additional historical significance. And incredibly, despite all these errors and the violence of the minting process, this coin emerged in virtually perfect condition and was later graded MS 69, which is essentially as perfect as a coin can be. The discovery story of this legendary coin is the stuff of numismatic legend. In March 1999, just weeks after the Delaware quarters began circulating, a construction worker in Pennsylvania stopped at a gas station and received a Delaware quarter in his change. And something about this coin immediately caught his attention because it looked wrong in multiple ways. It was thicker than a normal quarter. The design was off-center. There were raised lines across Washington's face, and under certain light it seemed to glow with a different quality than normal quarters. He pocketed the coin thinking it was interesting, and it sat in his drawer for almost 2 years before a friend who collected coins asked to look at his Delaware quarters. And when this friend saw the error coin, he literally dropped it in shock because he immediately recognized he was looking at something potentially historic. The authentication process for this coin took more than 18 months because grading services had never encountered anything quite like it. They had to verify each of the 5 different error types independently, confirm they all occurred during the original minting and weren't post-mint alterations, analyze the metal composition to verify the experimental die characteristics, document the first strike evidence, and assign a grade that reflected the paradox of a heavily error-laden coin in pristine preservation. And when PCGS finally encapsulated it with a grade of MS 69 and a label identifying all 5 major errors plus first strike status, the numismatic world collectively lost its mind. The coin was immediately recognized as potentially the most valuable modern coin in existence, and speculation about its value ranged from $50 million to potentially over $200 million, and collectors who specialized in state quarters, error coins, or first-year issues all desperately wanted it, setting up what would become the most competitive numismatic auction in history. The auction that saw this coin sell for $177 million in 2021 was an event that transcended numismatics and became international news. Major media outlets covered it, financial networks discussed it as an alternative investment story, and collectors from around the world registered to bid either in person, by phone, or through internet bidding. And when the auction began, you could feel the electricity in the air because everyone knew they were about to witness something unprecedented. Bidding opened at an already staggering $25 million, which would have been record-breaking for most coins. But this wasn't most coins, and the price immediately jumped to $50 million as serious players eliminated casual bidders. From there, it climbed in increments of $10 million with barely any pause as multiple bidders competed aggressively. At $100 million, several bidders dropped out, but 3 remained locked in fierce competition, and as the price climbed past $150 million, past $160 million, past $170 million, the entire room was standing, watching in awe. And when the hammer finally fell at $177 million, the room exploded in applause and cheers that lasted for several minutes, because everyone present understood they had just witnessed the absolute peak of modern numismatics. But here's what makes this coin even more legendary, and what has collectors worldwide frantically searching their 1999 P. Delaware quarters. Mint production records suggest that during this catastrophic production run, somewhere between 150 and possibly over 300 coins might have been struck exhibiting some combination of these errors before all the problems were identified and corrected, and while several dozen specimens have been authenticated over the years showing various combinations of the 5 major errors, the vast majority remain unaccounted for, lost in circulation, sitting in collections, or hidden away in forgotten coin jars, which means your 1999 P. Delaware quarter could potentially be one of these lost treasures. The identifiers for these spectacular coins are actually quite visible once you know what to search for. First, measure the thickness because double-thick planchet errors will be obviously thicker than a standard quarter. Second, check if the design is properly centered or if it appears off-center indicating the collar die misalignment. Third, examine Washington's portrait and the entire obverse for raised lines indicating die cracks. Look for any doubling or separation in design elements, suggesting die deterioration doubling. Hold the coin at various angles under bright light looking for any unusual reflective qualities from the experimental die treatment. And overall, trust your instincts because these error coins have a distinctive appearance that immediately sets them apart from normal quarters. Now, given the $177 million value, I cannot stress strongly enough the absolute necessity of professional authentication if you believe you have found one of these coins. The astronomical value has spawned an entire industry of counterfeits and altered coins, some created with sophisticated techniques that can fool even experienced collectors. So if you discover what you think might be a genuine 1999 P multiple error Delaware quarter, you absolutely must submit it to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication and grading before making any claims or attempting to sell it. But if it does authenticate as genuine, you have literally won the greatest lottery in numismatic history. The United States Mint's response to this catastrophic error was unprecedented in its scope. They conducted a complete investigation of what went wrong, fired several supervisors responsible for quality control, implemented revolutionary new technologies, including AI-driven real-time error detection, created completely new protocols for die handling and planchet verification, redesigned the production workflow to include multiple redundant inspection points, and instituted a zero-tolerance Policy for errors that has made such spectacular multi-error coins essentially impossible in modern production, which only serves to cement the legendary status and ever-increasing value of these 1999 P specimens. And here's something truly amazing. Even lesser examples of 1999 P Delaware errors, coins showing maybe just 2 or 3 of the 5 major errors instead of all 5, have been selling for anywhere from $10 million to $75 million, depending on which errors are present, the grade assigned, and whether there's any first strike evidence. So even if you don't find the ultimate $177 million specimen, finding any significant 1999 P error could still make you fantastically wealthy beyond your wildest dreams. The $177 million sale represented a watershed moment not just in numismatics, but in the broader collectibles market. It proved that modern items, if rare and significant enough, could achieve values that rival old master paintings, ancient artifacts, and the most legendary collectibles from any category. And it fundamentally changed how investors and collectors view error coins as a legitimate asset class worthy of serious investment consideration. This coin has been featured in museum exhibitions, written about in financial journals, discussed in investment newsletters, and become a symbol of how extraordinary value can hide in plain sight if you just know what to look for. And it has inspired a generation of collectors who examine their pocket change with renewed hope and attention, knowing that lightning could strike and the next great discovery could be in their hands. So let me leave you with this final thought. Right now, somewhere in America, maybe in your collection, maybe in your change jar, maybe still circulating in commerce, there could be one of these legendary error quarters waiting to be discovered, a coin that could transform your financial future, rewrite your family's destiny, and make you part of numismatic history. And all it takes is attention, knowledge, and maybe just a little bit of luck. Thank you so much for watching Old Glory Coins. If this video opened your eyes to the incredible values hiding in modern quarters, please hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell so you never miss future discoveries, and drop a comment below telling me if you're going to check your quarters now, because I promise you, the treasures of numismatics are out there waiting, and the next great discovery could have your name on it. Now get out there and start searching, because fortune favors the observant, and who knows, maybe you'll be the one making headlines with the next record-breaking coin find.